Oh, well, I am so excited about this upcoming conversation, and it's going to be led by one of our dear friends here at the University of Arkansas, Steve Lupien. He is a professor of blockchain and the director of our sister organization, the Center for Blockchain and Digital Innovation at the University of Wyoming. And Joel, again, you're a prominent leader in this space, so I'll give you my welcome too. But I'll leave it up to Steve to give you the accolades for the proper introduction. So Steve, I'd like to call you officially to the stage to start your conversation with Joel.
Well, Mary, thank you so much. And again, thank you. University of Wyoming wouldn't have a Center for Blockchain and Digital Innovation if it wasn't for your friendship and your advice and guidance. So I owe an awful lot to you in that regard. Joel and I have been friends. I think we first met, Joel, about 4 or 5 years ago when you were at Sullivan and Worcester, and you still lead their fintech and blockchain space. And frankly, from a legal standpoint, you're kind of an OG in this space, and there's not many people that have your tenure and your breadth of knowledge. So I'm real pleased to have you join us. And more recently, you've become the chief legal officer for IOHK and Cardano. So I think that's the right place to be at the right time, Joel. The theme of this conference is building a better world, and I can't think of an organization that personifies that more than what IOHK and Cardano are doing. Full disclosure, IOHK and Cardano have been an amazing supporter at the University of Wyoming, and the initial funding to get our blockchain center up was from a generous gift from IOHK. So not only do I think you're changing the world with your products, but what you're doing in education, I think is incredibly notable as well too. Joel, you are just off a unbelievably successful Cardano Global Summit last week. We're still kind of recovering from it. What positive insight and news can you share that came out of the summit?
Well, thank you, Stephen. First, and I think importantly, I want to specifically thank you and the University of Wyoming for being such amazing hosts. The Cardano Summit, we had an amazing number of people, somewhere between 50 and 70,000 people all over the world participating, most of them virtually, but we had a number of physical locations as well, but the home or the primary location was at the University of Wyoming last weekend. And you guys were just amazing hosts. It was just wonderful to be there, and in such a beautiful place as well. So I'm in this space, but I'm continually amazed as well when I see the things going on, because this has been a technology that's been moving at lightning speed. And on a weekly basis, it practically redefines itself. And anytime you've got new technology that's moving that quickly, there's a lot of hype, and there's actually, even sometimes some stupid things happening. So when we can start to point to and look at all these really cool, amazing things that blockchain is starting to be used for, that really makes me happy. And so there were just so many announcements last weekend, some that were almost in the unbelievable level, like using blockchain to improve AI to create, I guess, pretty human-looking robots that can help in like nursing homes and elderly care facilities, where we can use artificial intelligence in the form of robots to perform some of the routine tasks of taking care of elderly patients that we have a hard time doing today. Or using blockchain as a means to allow students in a country like Ethiopia that have gone to school but have a really hard time just proving that they've gone to school and have got a degree, helping them to actually for the first time be able to connect with employers in a much more efficient way and get jobs just because they can now say, yes, I went to school, I have this degree, I really have the credentials. And so those are the types of things that that I love what blockchain and what we at IOG also are doing to kind of take this and eliminate the hype and really demonstrate how we can help people and make things better with this technology.
Considering that Cardano, Joel, has really only been around since 2017,
Right.
And it's already currently the third largest cryptocurrency behind Bitcoin and Ether. What do you attribute Cardano's meteoric growth and success to?
I think there are several factors. There are a lot of competing blockchains. We certainly believe that we will be one of the ones that survive and win this competition. But there are some things that we truly believe are different for us. In addition to being able to have had the experience of looking at what works and doesn't work for Bitcoin, what works and doesn't work for Ethereum, then we've come along as what we call ourselves a third generation blockchain. And so there are a couple of things that we think are important in how we approach things. One is the model that we use to achieve consensus or to verify the validity of data that gets added to the blockchain. We use the so-called proof of stake versus proof of work model. And without drilling down on the technicalities of the difference, the most important aspect of this proof of stake approach that we take is the energy efficiency. We're able to accomplish the process of adding data to a blockchain at a fraction of the energy usage, for example, that's required by the Bitcoin blockchain to add a new block to that blockchain. So energy efficiency, which is a really important thing, is one of the things that distinguish us. Second is that we took a different, or I should say Charles Hoskinson, who started IOG and was the founder of the Cardano blockchain, took a very different approach, which was a much more scientifically rigorous approach. There's nothing wrong in the world of technology in a way of throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. But when you're trying to do things that really can have tremendous human consequence in what you're rolling out from a technological perspective, it's important to get it right. And so Charles said, we need to apply a scientific rigor to how we do this. And we've got, I always forget what his number is because it's always growing, but well over 100 scientific papers that we've published that really delve and dive deeply into how blockchain technology works, how cryptography works, how validation mechanisms work, all of the tools and components that make up blockchain, which are quite complex. He has decided are best served by a very rigorous approach of a lot of scholars, academics, and scientists that he brought together that do extensive amount of research, produce a lot of peer-reviewed papers that get tested in the marketplace that we then utilize to implement the solutions and structures for the Cardano blockchain that we think create a superior outcome. And it doesn't mean that it's perfect, but it does hopefully mean that what gets out into the marketplace is usable, it actually works the way it's purported to work, and has the functions that the world needs in order to really take advantage of blockchain technology. So that approach combined with our energy efficiency, we believe are what really distinguish us from some of the other blockchain infrastructures that are out there.
You mentioned the scientifically rigorous approach, and you're speaking to students and faculty and academics. Can you IOG has been very generous partners with a number of educational institutions, certainly at the University of Wyoming, my university, but also universities like Edinburgh and Tokyo, right. And even most recently, Carnegie Mellon. Right. Can you talk a little bit about the projects that IOG is doing through these institutions?
Sure. And so let me start with Carnegie Mellon, because I think that's very cool. I think, and it's something that's it's very personal for Charles. So Charles, again, the founder of IOG, has a mathematical background. I think he's a brilliant mathematician. And he has been thinking about the challenges with mathematics. In particular, the problem of being able to come up with a better way to prove mathematical proofs and theorems, and to allow people within the world of mathematics to collaborate in ways that they haven't before. And so he just recently gave a grant to Carnegie Mellon to launch the Hoskinson Institute of Formal Mathematics, which will create a methodology to bring in the use of computers and AI and algorithms to create a better way to verify and validate mathematical proofs and theorems, but more importantly, to allow mathematicians around the world to start to create a repository of shared ideas, shared outcomes and results, and create a systematized way to allow mathematics to move forward by combining the best of human thinking with the benefits of computer analysis. And so how does that tie back into what we're doing? Well, it goes well beyond just blockchain, but blockchain technology becomes part of the process of validation and verification of the ideas, concepts, and data that can be used, among other things, by mathematicians as part of the things that they want to do to collaborate and be able to create this repository of verified and validated data. And so the integration between what he's trying to do with Carnegie Mellon and blockchain, is a really natural fit. And then, we're working with other universities like yours, like you said, University of Edinburgh, where we think that when we think about research, by the way, it's not just narrowly focused on software coder design, or even on algorithmic methodologies that are utilized in blockchain technology. But it really goes beyond that to think about, from a conceptual, from a research standpoint, things like how do we even govern ourselves? How should we organize ourselves? How should we collaborate? And how does blockchain, for example, fit into that? So one of the things that we're working on now is conceptual models for new ways for human beings to organize and come together in how we govern or manage projects on a collaborative basis, where we can potentially utilize blockchain tools to be able to empower people by allowing them to participate in business models, by providing a better methodology of sharing data and information on a verified basis, by creating more transparency and using all that together to maybe allow us to do a better job in how we design, manage, and implement projects or businesses or just ecosystems. And so those are the types of things where we're also working with universities, because that brings in not just the technical papers, but it brings in philosophy, it brings in humanities, it brings in economics, it brings in all of these disciplines that where we think that blockchain has some tools that can allow us to combine all of these in interesting ways. And so when we look at what we're doing with different universities, it's a pretty broad list. And I know that's kind of abstract, so let me give you another concrete example. We, like a lot of people in the blockchain or crypto space, have been looking at so-called stable coins. And so I'm expecting a lot of people in the audience to know what they are, but basically a stable coin is a subcategory of a cryptocurrency that by definition is designed to try to keep its value relatively fixed. Not that it won't ever change in price, but to keep it relatively fixed. And there are different ways that stable coins achieve this. The most simple way is to directly back a stable coin to a fiat currency. And so if you have a dollar-backed stable coin, for every coin you create, you take $1 and you put it in the vault. So the stable coin always has a price that is pegged permanently to the value of $1. But there are other types of stable coins, including one of the most interesting innovative categories, which are called algorithmic stablecoins, where the stablecoin stability is created in part by algorithms that use various monetary policy variables to try to maintain a price stability, such as increasing or decreasing the supply of the stablecoin, such as increasing or decreasing a reserve that backs the stablecoin, or increasing or decreasing the transaction costs to increase or decrease friction to encourage the amount of usage of the stablecoin. And so we've been working with University of Edinburgh and others, and recently came out with a paper on algorithmic stablecoins that is a pretty remarkable paper that goes into not only the algorithms, but all the mathematical modeling underlying why an algorithmic stablecoin that's structured in certain ways really can potentially work and create a new way to create this notion of a token that has a relatively stable value. And so that's the type of thing that you know, while there are a lot of stablecoins out there, there aren't many that have the backing of that type of deep academic research underlying it.
Yeah, that's, you know, having read many of those papers, the work that IOG is doing in that space is truly remarkable, and again, in theme with this conference, is really kind of the technology and the products that really will be building a better world. Now, you had closer to home, IOG had a remarkable announcement regarding a U.S. partnership that you're going to be entering into. Do you want to take a minute and talk about that?
Okay, thank you. So again, you know, I said earlier on, sometimes in new technologies, including blockchain, there's a lot of hype. And so one of the criticisms of blockchain is that it's a solution, too often it's a solution looking for the problem. And so one of the things that I think is very cool is that there are real world actual uses for blockchain that are being implemented right now today as we speak. And so one of the things that we're really, really proud of and excited about is the collaboration that we just formed with Dish. You know, the telecom company, and particularly starting with their Boost mobile unit. And so we're doing a couple things in the first phase of this really cool collaboration with them. One is that, like a lot of telecom carriers, they have a loyalty or rewards program. So I don't know who you use for your mobile phone, but you probably every month get something that says, hey, you've earned X number of rewards this month, and you can use them to buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or to apply it for a future phone purchase or something. So the concept of these types of programs aren't new, but they're pretty inefficient. And so one of the things we're doing is looking at blockchain technology to digitize or tokenize this loyalty program. And once you do that, it opens a door to allow you to integrate that loyalty program with a lot of partners. And so to diversify and expand the types of services and opportunities that you provide your customers. So that's a pretty cool, relatively straightforward thing, where we're just taking something that's analog and turning it into a digital program using blockchain. But where I think it starts to really get interesting is that we're also, we have what we call a Telpner, which is an identity solution. Sometimes people call this, you know, self-sovereign identity in the blockchain world. But it allows us to also integrate into, for example, the tokenized loyalty program, a better way for customers to identify who they are using blockchain technology, providing information that they wish to provide without disclosing information they don't want to provide. So it allows customers to control their identity, but to make identity-related information selectively available. And by doing that, the benefit is that it starts to now allow a telecom or provider like Dish and Boost the ability to offer their customers other types of services like financial services. Because if you want to offer financial services, one of the big challenges is that you've got to provide certain types of know your customer and other identity information in order to do that. So by integrating into a program like a loyalty program, identity features, it now allows you to take, you know, a phone like this, and now this really starts to become your portal to all kinds of financial services that perhaps people don't have. And some of us maybe take that for granted, but you know, a lot of the market right now for Boost are people that use prepay services on a monthly basis. And that is the same crowd that in many cases doesn't have access to traditional banking services, because maybe they're not the type of profile that traditional banks go after. And so if you can create a means to create financial inclusiveness and bring financial services to that part of the economic segment, that's really empowering. And then you can also use it for fun things. Boost has a partnership with DraftKings, and people like to bet on college sports. Well, if you
No.
digitize, that's right. I'm sorry. And we can talk later about the spread for Wyoming this coming weekend. But if you can simply create an identity solution digitally, every sports betting is governed on a state-by-state basis. So every state has different criteria. So if now you can use just the identity process in and of itself as a means for allowing people to verify that they have the right, age, the right credentials and so on to be able to participate in sports betting, you've created a new fun product that they can access in a way they couldn't in the past. And then lastly, and where this really starts to get interesting and takes it, is that we also eventually, and so where this ultimately goes is we eventually start to empower customers to be able to now start to track their usage in bandwidth and potentially provide excess capacity or bandwidth back to the network the same way that people are starting to do with electricity. So we start to be able to use where we're going with Dish and Boost to create a methodology to track, identify, and trade unused bandwidth. And so where this goes is just, I think, phenomenal. And so that's real world stuff that we're doing right now today. And the same things that we're doing with Dish and Boost, by the way, are replicable for other types of loyalty programs, such as the kind you have with your airlines, where they're also pretty inefficient programs right now, but could be improved significantly if we start to convert them to a blockchain-based digital program.
Yeah, I mean, you and I could literally talk for hours about that topic alone, because that's what kind of gets me out of bed in the morning is those real world applications that are not some esoteric exercise, but those things that really are changing the world.
And let me, I just want to add one more thing to that, because we're also doing some similar projects with some other carriers in Africa. And so I think it takes on even more importance when you start to look at it in parts of the world, emerging markets, where just establishing your identity, proving who you are, and giving people access to basic services like financial services is really critical. And so while it's kind of cool and interesting to talk about doing this with Dish and with Boost, I think it really becomes rewarding when we start to be able to roll out the same types of things in parts of the world where you are truly changing lives by just allowing people to utilize a cell phone now to prove who the hell they are and to get access to things like financial services.
No, look, I couldn't agree more. There are way too many people throughout this world that, because of identity challenges, are unbanked, and that sounds like it's exactly the types of projects that you're focusing on. Now, you talked a little bit about Itala Prism. Because we're educators and students here, you have a program for what you call the Pioneers Program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you mean the aspect of how we want people like you and your students to participate in that?
Yes.
Again, I guess let me back up just slightly. So when we talk about the realities, again, versus hype and blockchain, one of the things that blockchain does is allow us to be able to anonymize information and data. And I know I'm talking to an audience that probably understands some of this even better than I do, because they have technological backgrounds. But once you allow people to start to share data, but do it in a quasi-anonymized basis where appropriate, you start to manage and control the type of information that you share and don't share. And so if you look at the problems we have in the United States right now, where I don't know, it was an Experian that, 140 million people, their personal data got hacked. If we start to take data away from these centralized databases and servers and push that data out to our own individual ownership, and then we selectively give back the data we want to share in order to get access to financial services or to do other things like vote, or to prove we're old enough to buy, a beer. That starts to completely shift the dynamics. So the opportunities in ways that we can utilize data, create self-sovereign entity, move that power and functionality from traditional corporate structures to individuals is almost unlimited, unbounded in the ways we think about it. So we're not going to come up with all these solutions ourselves, but we think that working with a lot of people around the world, we collectively will create a lot of creative ideas. And we also think that for those of us that are kind of dinosaurs, when I was a student, I was still keeping notes on clay tablets. So it's not us that are going to think, it's not us, it's people that are still students that are thinking about who they are, how they define their identity, how they define themselves in completely different ways than many older generations do. And they're the ones that are going to understand the importance of controlling their destinies and come up with the ideas of how you can take something like Atala, which is an identity solution, and apply it to the real world needs of the human population going forward. And so the way I describe it, even simplest terms, is that we're not going to do that. IOG is not going to solve these types of things by ourselves. We're not going to come up with all these cool ideas by ourselves. We want students around the world working with people like you to think about how they want to change their own lives, control their own destiny, and team up, whether it's with us or somebody else, but to team up and work with products and ideas like Atala to come up with better ways to manage the human existence. Is that too grandiose? I mean, that's the way I look at the program.
You and I are, equally Neanderthalic in how long we've been around. For students today, I was a little bit better than clay tablets. I had a Mac 128 that I bought in 1984, but libraries back then didn't have a lot of outlets. So I had to carry a 50-foot extension cord around with me and hope that nobody tripped over it. So believe me, Joel, we share a lot there. A lot of what you've been talking about, not only from an IOG standpoint, but Joel, you personally in your from how I know you in the legal profession is about governance. And I wrote down a quote that Charles said at the summit, where he said, people are fundamentally unhappy with governance. And there's an appetite for new systems, new ways of governance, and new types of institutions. Can you expand a little bit on what Charles meant by that and how that's being applied at IOG?
Yes. So if you look at governance models, why do people get disgruntled and get upset and just finally say the hell with it all? One is that they often don't see what's happening. There's no transparency. So without transparency, they assume the worst, or they assume that, or that nothing's happening. There's no kind of ability to verify or authenticate or validate what's happening, whether it's at a managerial level in a company or what the US government is doing. They say we're doing this, but how the hell do people, how do we know? And we live in a cynical world with a lot, of sources of news, and we're sick to death of this notion of fake news. But the reality is that it's hard to verify what's truth and what's not truth, what's real and what's not real. And lastly, if you are frustrated and you haven't given up altogether, and you really would like to say, hey, wait a minute, let me raise my hand. This is what I think. It becomes increasingly hard to do that. So we have lack of reporting, lack of transparency, lack of ability to verify or authenticate information, and difficulty in participating. So philosophically or theoretically, if we solve these problems, potentially we create better governance or managerial models, better ways for us to collaborate as human beings, whether it's just launching a business or whether it's how we govern ourselves on a national level. So why did we talk about this in the context of blockchain? What's the correlation? What's the relevance? Well, there are two things. One, it's both, by the way, it's not just blockchain, it's blockchain and the internet. The internet gave us the ability to be able to communicate with other human beings in a way we've never been able to before. You and I are having this conversation and we're looking at each other. This is working really well. And we're as close as we can be to being in the same room without holograms. And 10 years ago, you couldn't do this.
Right.
So now we have this ability to communicate better, but the internet only solved that piece of the puzzle. What if you could combine that communication ability with a better way to create, again, the transparency piece, so people could actually see what you are doing, whoever the you is, whether it's the government, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a business, if people could better see what is going on, if there was better way for the information that's going out to the world, to participants, to stakeholders, could be verified and validated, so we stopped having these fights over whether the information is fake or real. And if there was a better way for us as individual stakeholders to say, wait a minute, here's my idea, here's my view, here's my opinion, I want you to really see it and hear it and potentially even act on it, then we take the internet and add onto it all these additional tools that create a very powerful way for us to come together and collaborate as humans. And that's what blockchain does. And so
oh, we just have a little bit of a technical glitch here at a point, but we're coming up to time. So poor Joel, we didn't get to praise you or thank you, but I just, Steve, thank you for the conversation. One of the things that we're talking about today is using ethics to help guide our applications. And I think Joel, I started writing down some of the words that he had said during his talking points. We want to build a world based on privacy. We want to base the world on something that really has user control. Right now, when we say I agree to this policy, that's not user control. That's, you don't get to access services if you're not holding. He talked about authenticity and he talked about transparency. So I really appreciate both of you having this conversation with us today. And many of the talking points that you both mentioned, we're going to have deep dives into both in-depth conversations and our breakout sessions today. So with that, from the University of Arkansas, thank you both for being here.
Thank you. And Joel, talk with you soon.
thank you.
Mary, thank you for the opportunity. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
Bye now.